This video is going to be about not even wrong, and some things are more wrong than others. Saying the Earth is a completely perfect sphere is not technically correct. Saying it's flat is less accurate because they can demonstrate this. Saying what its actual shape is brings a level of complexity that is bizarrely difficult to fix. I'm going to give you an example. To make a perfect emulation of a human face for a facial recognition program, you have to start with what is referred to as the model human face, or the model face. There isn't any such thing because there's so much variation in size, shape, depth, texture, color, that if you had a computer have to start off with some sort of generic starting point, it would never finish even building that. You could take every human being on the planet, mix them all together, and come up with the average of every single face shape and every single color of skin and eye color, everything. And it would look generic. It would look like many people. Well, no, it would look like only a very small number of people. A few people show up as being the most generic looking faces. This has been done before. You might have seen it in Time magazine and that sort of thing. But using that as a standpoint, you get so much variation from that standpoint to everybody else. It's no different than using me as the standard. This is because of the chaos of reality. If you look at the surface of the Earth and look at sea level is different heights away from the core of the Earth depending on where you are, because the tides go in and out. And yes, we do understand why. The average of these numbers works fairly nicely, but now we've already created an average. The average should be based on how long it's high or low, or the difference between them. If we use the difference between them, then water level is above or below that average, because it's not always high and it's not always low, and it's not evenly distributed between the two altitudes or heights, because the water level changes more if both the sun and moon are on one side of the Earth versus them being on opposing sides. Don't like that? I don't care. This is something you can see demonstrated at your local wharf. Now, when we get conspiracy theorists involved, the rule here is that a conspiracy theorist does not care what the truth is. They always yell that word. It's a talisman. It's like a magic spell to prevent you from questioning them. I'm for truth. It's like people who scream, I'm a Christian or I'm a patriot. No matter how unchristian or unpatriotic they behave, they're going to yell that because they know it's a way of dispelling any kind of criticism. It's a hand wave. It doesn't mean anything. And even if they say it does, we just stop assuming someone isn't just lying through their fucking ass at us when they're saying something that's obviously not true. It's not always a mistake. And honestly, it may not even be a lie. They just don't give a shit. There's two kinds of lying here going on. Flat earthers want to say, let's throw everything out and start over with a clean slate. They say symbolically the earth should be flat and that sort of thing. They also say 100 other things. There is no consistency between them. So let's try looking into this really quickly. Someone has linked on their YouTube channel only 2 or 3 things. An assertion about the Earth and 2 publications that were listed. One of them is almost not available anymore because the archive.org page and the CIA archive are damaged. But I found a good copy of the archive.org. There's a 19-page, 1948 June Russian language bi-monthly periodical translated into English for the CIA and everybody else, which means it was not translated correctly if you haven't figured it out. And it's on the geodetic, aerial surveying, and cartography subject matter, Moscow, USSR. And it brings up the equipotential surface of the Earth's gravity field, which best fits, in a least squares sense, global mean sea level. Now, in case you haven't figured it out, when I'm talking about global mean sea level would mean it would be really not between the high and low, but what would be the most common average altitude or height for the water. But guess what we use? We use that. This is based on, if you're curious about that, figuring out the gravitational pull all over the planet to find the true altitude to the core of the Earth, which you can't really do because every single variable you try to account for, you find more variables. You get vanishing smaller and smaller error, but you keep having it. The next one is a best fit for what the water level would be without any land on the planet. So do you take all the land and spread it out thin so you just have the water on top? You just have mud. Do you remove the land? Well, that changes the mass of the Earth. And another one was the best example if the Earth, but only influenced by gravity and rotation. But again, that doesn't work because every little dit and dot in the universe changes it. The water itself creates a gravitational change. It becomes an oscillating system that does go to equilibrium, but on a worldwide scale, it would not. See also a couple of movies with what's his name crying. A guy named J.F. Listing created the term geoid to describe this mathematical hypothetical surface in 1873 and was quoted in a 20-some-odd page document or 19-odd page document by the CIA after they translated it. That means you're looking at the assertions of a person in the 1800s who's frustrated that all of his mathematics won't account for the fact that there are fiddly bits around the fjords in Scandinavia. Yes, that's you know where that's from if you read the book. Reality isn't a neat, nice package. And I should also point out that's 1873. That's before we understood that, yes, earthquakes are caused by the tectonic plates moving, which means you can't even use the measurements you made 5 years ago anymore because the damn things have moved relative to each other. This is before they realized the Juan de Fuca plate off the coastline of Oregon was another continent that was literally shoved underneath North America. No, true story. It's still melting. That's why we have volcanic activity, specifically in Yellowstone. But yeah, that was from a publication with a complicated German-sounding name that was translated into Russian, that was retranslated into English, and someone found somewhere in it that it said something like, the Earth, we cannot determine its shape, or another expression was, we have a fixed, non-moving flat Earth as a base model. You quoted somebody from the 1800s that was misquoted from, I think, German into Russian back into English in the 20th century because he didn't know that the tectonic plates do what they do because they exist, and him being frustrated you can't use a simple mathematical model for reality. As I've said, if you try to average out all the humans, you just end up with yet another very specific, very oddly precise model of a potential human being that is existing or does exist right now, but you don't end up with the average of all humans. You don't end up with a baseline that you can use to judge everything by. That can't work. The generic model is a basic shape, most of the ratios for the bones in the body. The exact numbers for the distances between here and here versus here and here aren't going to work. You'll just end up with an extremely unique, supposedly generic model that will be just as useless as using me as the model, just about. Unless you're grossly, mechanically, abnormally shaped, any human being, and this is the conclusion of this, any human being can be used as the standard to judge others by equally badly and equally well. If you wait over a long enough period of time, that's how it is. The Wikipedia wiki page on the geoid is also atrociously written and everybody should poop on it. Time zones only get wider going southward from the equator. They do not taper inward together at the equator or below the equator. That's of course assuming that it has to be a flat Earth and the North Pole's in the middle. This is a person who didn't bother checking any of this. It's also relying on the fact that in the southern hemisphere, most of the land area tapers down, so it does appear to be spreading out from the coastlines. But that's literally someone creating a situation where they can harness their own ignorance. To form any South Pole can't happen. Ball Earth obliterated. Take that, science. Do the science on that. Make a model. Yeah, it's called a sphere, and you're going to be quoting some source that doesn't exist. Somebody visited my channel. Obviously, I'm going to be, traipsing into his universe and looking into his assertions. Another publication that was linked, and it's the only thing on the channel, was to people talking about autopilots on airplanes not needing to care about the Earth being flat or round because they're based on the gravitational pull, making it to where they don't have to. Gyroscopes on airplanes don't assume you're going to turn the airplane upside down, so they just ignore that. That's actually how some of them are made. I'm not kidding. There must be an intelligent argument. Otherwise, why post a question? Now, this is literally a flat earther logic. This is called massaging your brain or brainwashing. Because people post questions about stuff they don't know about, that doesn't mean it's an intelligent argument. That means it's an argument from ignorance. If someone asks a question, that doesn't mean they're intelligent or that the question's intelligent. Every one of you has personal experience with this, so this first assertion someone was using as a brain massaging method fails. Let's try some more. Your question doesn't require an answer. It has become self-evident. What has been self-evident? The answer? The point of a person asking a question is they're asking you to answer it. To answer with no would infer that you fail to possess the required cognitive capability to rationalize and discern truth, having been exposed to it with full sight of the flaws, a reality taught to us as children, accepted as fact. Now, all of that is simply the assertion, I'm right and you're wrong. Let's reread it. If you answer no to my question, this would infer you fail to possess the virtue of being like me, an elevated person, because I'm not programmed from birth to believe ice cream exists. It's the same kind of argument. What was this answer to? There must be an intelligent argument, otherwise, why post a question? No. Or was it, your question doesn't require an answer since it has become self-evident? And if you answer no, basically if you argued that the person telling you something that's bullshit like this is simply wrong, then that just means you're weak mentally. Am I doing the same thing? Okay, let's try it differently. If I ask you to make a model of a flat earth that fits reality and it fails, then you failed to provide a model that works better than the one we are using that does match. That's not a thought-terminating cliche. That's something I'm saying as something I can prove, because we can just use a computer model or a mechanical model and get the answers. They're consistent. They're not ultra precise, but saying the Earth is flat gives us 80 different altitudes for the sun, 40 different angles for it, or some other crazy number like that, and doesn't explain how the fuck the universe works and why we're the only pizza in a world full of meatballs, or a universe full of meatballs. Look up differences between plane surveying and geodetic surveying. Plane surveying is used for local projects where Earth's curvature can be ignored more easily, below 8 miles, up to 20 or 30 miles in some cases. Geodetic surveys take in distances where Earth's curvature may be of consequence, like navigation or space flight. Plane surveying manuals are the ones that intimate the Earth as a flat and small area. Plane surveying manuals are the ones that assume the Earth as a flat, unmoving object, and for some reason in the 1940s and many years, they didn't think it was important to say that we're doing this as an assumption to simplify the math, when that's what they're doing. In science and engineering, it's often useful to use simplifying assumptions that help you reduce complicated problems into forms that are easier to solve. For a local 2 or 1D model of the atmosphere, for instance, the curvature of the Earth is not really an important factor. However, on a global scale, it obviously is, because days, we rotate. An autopilot device can ignore 1 per day rotation of the Earth and cheats by using radar. If it doesn't have radar, it's not allowed to do it. NASA referenced publication such and such on non-rotating flat Earth. Derivatives and definitions of linear aircraft models. It assumes the Earth is flat and not rotating to simplify the math, and also because the equipment cheats by using radio signals. And it said that in the first 2 paragraphs, but people keep walking over it. The publications you heard of from Russia, the United States, etc., saying something about a flat Earth are doing it to simplify math. And in many cases, if you're not looking at these flat earthers, they omit the first paragraph or the last one where it says that. For the purpose of discussion, we will assume a spherical cow. Moo, moo, moo. We don't have them, but we'll assume it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.